here we go. We are up to, so we're learning today for the first level of my granddaughter for our college card, who I will try to call today. Hopefully he's doing much better. I heard from him Erev Yom Tov, Yosef and Sarah, and for our dear friend Jeffrey, Abramson, who's under the weather today, should feel better. There we go.
Man.
Everybody's zuchos today. Here we go. So we began the parak listing out 15 different supervisors for 15 different jobs in the Beis Hamikdash. Well, comes the next Mishnah and says, besides the 15, bureaucracy is bureaucracy, and there are always levels to bureaucracy. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Halacha 2, Yud Days 14b1. Ain't Poischin Yeshiva Amr Kulin. We have no less than 7 supervisors. We have 7 supervisors over the 15 managers. Let's call guys in the first Mishnah the managers. We got 7 managers over the 15 supervisors. And we have 3 treasurers. And no financial authority may be established over public communal funds of less than 2 officials. So, if you're dealing in a shul, theoretically there needs to be at least 2 treasurers.
We need 2 signatures. Okay. We have 2 signatures on every check.
Right, and as you're about to see, Charlie, it's a lot worse than that. They put in a system that made it like impossible. Let's keep going. Chutz mi ben Achia shal choyle hamayim, except for Ben Achia, who was responsible to deal with the Kahanim's intestinal disorders. What was so special about that? The Gemara is going to talk about. The Lozo Sha'ala Paroichis, and a Lozo who was responsible for all the curtains in the Beis Hamikdash. They were accepted by the majority of the public. That everybody said these single guys, these single supervisors were okay. These single managers were okay. 14b2. 14b2. Says the Gemara.
Yitzchak.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of static.
Oh, so let me switch. I'm going to switch.
Yeah, switch. All right? Because
give me 1 minute. I'm going to switch.
Problem. Switch.
Yep. Good. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to switch. Yeah, I'm going to log out. I have to log out of this. So I'm logging out. Hang on. And okay, Charlie, can you hear me?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, much better indeed. Okay, I don't know why, but my clearly,
it's fine.
Yeah, perfect. So we're up to the Gemara.
Okay, good.
Good.
I
Ready?
got it. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Ein Poischin Mishloisha Giborim Uvishiva Amkulin. So we repeat: no less than 3 treasurers and 7 supervisors. Tani Mishnei Katlikin, and we have no less than 2 overseers overseeing the supervisors. So we got 15 managers, 7 supervisors, 2 overseers over the supervisors, and besides all that, anything to do with the treasury requires, like you said, at least 2 signatures. How do we see this? This is what it says in the pasuk in Navi. V'yechiel Va'azayohu v'nachas gizborim. These were the treasurers. The Asoel v'rimois v'yoizovod v'eliel v'yismacho v'machas u'v'noyahu amrikulit. They were the supervisors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tekidim biyad keel koinonanu v'shimiecha. Officers serving under Kinyanu and Shimi, his brother, Kisilim. These are the overseers. Mimivkad Yichiskiyo HaMelech Barzayo Nogid Beiso Elikim.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Here, Kaslikin is spelled with a kuf, and on top it's spelled
with a cough. You're right.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. It's like
Okay,
a lot of right.
That's good.
Exactly.
Now I have no problem. I just want to see it.
Yep. And you'll see it in a lot of cases. There are things spelled with a tzaddik and spelled with a shin.
Got it.
Things, yeah, they're interchangeable.
No problem. Let's not waste time.
I don't know. Yeah, good. The question's better than the answer. And so the pasuk says, "Nifkid Chizkiyo HaMelech Barzayo Nogid Beisu Elikim HaMelech V'Koyin Gadol." The Nogid, the commissioner of the house of God, is the king and the Koyin Gadol. So in other words, what we have over here is a bureaucracy ladled, overlatching supervision, a hierarchy. And here is how it worked. Kishuhu chaysen, when they sealed the money in the chamber, so monies were deposited and they put locks on the door. Hakizba chaysen v'nosnu la'amra arako. The treasurer sealed it and gave it to the supervisor. Aramko chaysen, then the supervisor seals it, v'noisem le kaslikoi, and gives it to the overseer. The overseer seals it and gives it to the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol chaysim and noisem lamelech. The Kohen Gadol seals it and gives it to the king. Kishuhu mati, when they want to take out money, they want to unseal. Hamelech royach chaysmai l'mati. The king examines his top seal to make sure it wasn't tampered with, and he unseals it. Kohen Gadol royach chaysamei umatir, Kesilim royach chaysamei umatir, Akama royach chaysamei umatir, and Gizba royach chaysamei umatir. So everybody in ascending and descending order. So in other words, they were triply clear. As we're going to see, this suspicion when it came to money touches everyone, as we're going to see very clearly shortly. I don't want to give away the story, but it's going to be amazing who was accused of taking money.
You know, what's surprising here, it's a little bit like when Moshe was told that he has to get himself, shoftim and this, and he has to have different people supervising. He has to delegate. And here it looks like the opposite. That the king had to be involved in everything.
So hold that thought for about 3 minutes.
Okay,
hold
go
that
ahead.
thought for about 3 minutes. And very interesting that you should mention Moshe Rabbeinu, because here you go. Ein oisin shirora al tzibur mamamei pachs mishnayim, and financially, there's never less than 2 people in dealing with the public funds. Rav Nachman b'shem Rav Mono says, you see it from a pasuk. Al shem v'heim yikhu es azov es atcheles v'es agomon, and they shall take the gold, the tcheles, and the purple wool. They means at the minimum 2 people. You need 2 people. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, Charlie, was very, very wealthy, and that caused problems. The rabbi being wealthy is always looked at with a jaundiced eye. Reb Chama Bey, Rabbi Chanina, Mipsoile Shaluchais Heshim Moshe. Moshe became wealthy from the fragments that were hewn away by the chopping of the luchais of the second luchais, which that he got to keep. Carve for yourself 2 stone tablets. That's the second luchais. Says the pasuk, Salacha. For yourself, carve for yourself. Hey, that the fragments shall be yours. Reb Chanin, says Reb Chanin, Machsev shalavonim toibis u'margolia isparoloi HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitoich ha'oloi. Said no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created for Moshe Rabbeinu a quarry of precious stones within Moshe Rabbeinu's tent. Umimenu Heshe Moshe. And from this, Moshe became wealthy. Now look what happened. Ksiv, V'hibitu achrei Moshe shabayu ha'oloi. And they gazed after Moshe until he entered the tent. Twain Amoraim, 2 Amoraim argued. Chadam al-Gedai. This pasuk that they looked after Moshe until he got into his tent, they said was embarrassing behavior of the Jewish people. The Chadam al-Shebach, one says no, it's praiseworthy behavior. Man, the Amal-Gedai. So what is the Gedai? This is what the people were saying about Moshe as he was walking to his tent. Chamun Shokin, look at his thick thighs. Chamun Karen, look at his plump legs. Chamun Kupa, look at his flesh. Ochel min 14b3. Ochel mina Yehudoi v'shosei mina Yehudoi. He eats from embezzled funds from the Jews, and he drinks from embezzled funds from the Jews. Kol Maglin Mina the Yehudi. All his wealth comes from his embezzlement of the Jew from the Jews. Umad Yom al Shvach, and the one who says no, it was praiseworthy because they was said Halavai Samei Tzadike Umechaze. Whoa, that would that we should be merit to see the righteous and the just. This one was when Moshe was going from his tent to the oil mayit, and from the oil mayit back to his tent. They would say, Toivi Zochas Lachme Yosef. Indeed, it is good to have merited to see him. We are on 14b3. So now let's just stop a second. We're dealing with Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the Raya Behemna, the shepherd. He was the one who led them out of Mitzrayim. Through him came the Aseret Makis. It didn't matter.
I agree. I see that from the Kohanim. They made sure that they wore the certain clothes or the shoes so they couldn't take the money and walk out with it. So I guess we're a very suspicious group.
Let me take it further. Back to your question about the king. If you notice, the king is the last of the seals to be put on, and the first of the seals to be taken off. He is the furthest away from the money. He doesn't actually touch the money. He's the furthest away from the money. Because even the Kohen Gadol was the one the second to last to put a seal on, and the second person to take it off. The supervisors and the managers and the Gizbayrim, they all came. No. We are in a remarkably suspicious people. If we could say this, and now we understand how Kairach could happen. Have you ever asked the question, how did Kairach happen? Come on. You saw Moshe Rabbeinu. You saw he was reluctant to become the leader. You knew Aaron. Aaron led the people in Mitzrayim before Moshe took over. That was the beauty and genius and unbelievable kite of Aaron HaKohen, that he gladly gave over the leadership to his younger brother when it came time to letting them out. But Aaron was the leader during the slavery. Kairach didn't see this. Kairach was their cousin, was their uncle. Didn't see it? The answer is suspicion is an unbelievable thing. A rabbi that has money has to be so much more careful for the purposes of us in BJC. How careful is Rabbi Gibber with regard to monetary stuff? There are so many levels. There are so many levels between Rabbi Gibber and the actual general fund of the shul. And it's proper and just, because otherwise somebody, it's inevitable. If they could do it to Moshe Rabbeinu, they could do it to Rabbi Yaakov Gibber, they could do it to Rabbi Goldberg, they could do it to anyone. That's the point. And the Gemara is clearly saying human nature is human nature. Just because we're Jews and we're taught, Yudan is called Odom Lekaf Sechus, you should judge every person as good, right? Everybody has a cheskes kashrus. Everybody's assumed to be good. Nonetheless, trust but verify is a very Jewish reality. And that's what this was talking about. Now, go back to, just for a second, we're up to the next Mishnah, we're up to Halacha Gimel. Go back to 13a, just to the beginning of the Mishnah, the first Mishnah in the Perek. And it began as follows. Charlie, let me know when you have it. 13a5. Right, so now, look how the Mishnah begins. Eluhem amamoinim shahayu b'migdash. These are the 13, at the 15 supervisors in the Migdash. And at the first two, Yochanan ben Pinchas ala chaysaimos, Yochanan ben Pinchas on the tokens, Achia ala nisochin, and Achia on the libations that came along with the kavanis. The Gemara to this point has not explained these two lines. Now back to our Mishnah on 14b3. Okay?
14?
Back to our Mishnah. Hi, Daddy. Good morning. Hi. A good summer. We are on 14b3, Halacha Gimel.
Oh.
Halacha Gimel.
I thought you were going to get to Halacha Dalet.
No, we said 14. We went to Halacha Beis, remember? Till you Dalet on the Beis.
Okay, I learned it already.
Right. So, Charlie, we just went back and looked at the Mishnah at the beginning of the Perek, which talked about Yochanan ben Pinchas, who was in charge of the tokens, and Achio, who was in charge of the Nisachim, the libations that came along with the Kabbalah. And these two were not yet explained in the first Mishnah. In the Gemara, they did not explain what exactly these guys do. So now comes this halacha 3, and gets into this. There were 4 types of tokens in the Beis Hamikdash. Because of it, essentially what they were stamps. When you got this stamp, you were able to purchase the nisachim that you required for the various kabbalas that you were bringing. 4 tokens, 4 stamps. Because of Aleim, and they wrote on them Egel, calf, Zacha, male, Gedi, a kid. That means a sheep or a goat within its first year. V'chayta, a sinner, i.e., what the Mitzayra requires. Now, just to point out over here, a Mitzayra, what it requires depends whether it's a Mitzayra that's an Oshir, is rich, therefore brings from animals, from bakar, from cattle. Mashenk, and a poor Mitzayra brings from birds, the turtle dove, from the dove, and the pigeons. Then Azai Oimer,
And if you even more, if you even poorer, you bring a mincha.
Right, and you bring poor, you didn't bring it, but then you don't need a token. Then you didn't require a token, exactly.
Or you don't be
Right.
for the flour, maybe, I don't know.
But you're going to need a token for it. There was one carbon they all brought. So we're going to see. The Gemara is going to talk about. Ben Azayoyme, Chamisha. There were 5, not 4, 5 tokens, 5 stamps. Barmoris Kosev Alein, and it was written in Aramaic, i.e., the English of its time, or the Yiddish of its time, or the Ladino of its time, i.e., so that people should know what they're looking at. To remind everybody, the Gemara, the Talmud, is written in Aramaic, not Lashon HaKodesh. And the reason for that is that the Gemara itself was the first art scroll. The Gemara itself was written in the language that people spoke at that time. So even back then, the idea was that people should be able to learn and understand what they're learning. So even back then, there was an art scroll. It just wasn't in English. It was in Aramaic. Right. So go like this. Egel, a calf. Dechar, a ram. So he pulls out ram. Ram is I had this before. Okay. Gidi, chayta, dal, v'chayta, ashir. A poor sinner and a rich sinner. And as I pointed out, there are 2 types of mitzayers. So he said, guess what? We have tokens for rich. We've got token stamps for rich mitzayers and for poor mitzayers. Says the Mishnah Baita, Halacha Gimel. Egel mishameshim nischei boscha. The calf token was served from the chosim nisachim of cattle. That means when you had to bring an ox, you brought an ox, you brought it along with a certain amount of oil and a certain amount of yayin, of wine, i.e., you brought I believe it was 3 lugan, it was flour actually. I think it was 3 surin of flour.
3 surin of flour.
And 6 lugan of oil and
right.
wine. Right. 3 and 6. Cattle brought 3 and 6. 3 is surin of, let's just do 3. 3 of flour. And 6 of oil and wine. Gedolim, ketanim, zecharim, unekevas. Didn't matter. We're on 14b4. Whether large or small, male or female, it would not matter. The size of the cattle, of the bakar. It's cattle, it's 3 and 6. 3 flour, 6 oil and water, and oil and wine. Gidi, a young kid, i.e., within its first year, Mishameshim Nichsei Asayin, would obviously serve for the Nesachim of the flock of sheep and goats. Gedolim, Uketanim, Zecharim, Unekevas. And they did 2 and 4. 2 flour, 4 oil and wine. Right. Chutz Mishel Elim. But when we say over here, Gedolim, Ketanim, Zecharim, Unekevas, large or small, male or female, Chutz Mishel Elim. But the Nesachim of rams, the ram being more than a year old, already in its 2nd year, it changes its name from Gedi to an Ayil. So, for an example, when by Yitzchak Avinu and the Akedah, by Akedah Yitzchak, Avraham Avinu picked up his hand and he saw an Ayil Acher, another Ayil. Yitzchak was the original Ayil. Ayil Acher, he saw another one. How did he know, by the way, that Ayil was to replace Yitzchak? Because the gematria of the word Acher, other, is Aleph Ches Reish, is 209, which just happens to be the same gematria as Yitzchak, which is 208, plus the Kailul is 209. So Yitzchak and Acher are the same gematria. So, further, says like this. So, except for the ayil mishamish nichse eila bilvad. The ram would serve for the nisachim of rams alone. Nonetheless, that didn't change anything. It just meant that it still goes 2 and 4. It still also only got 2 flour and 4 oil and wine. But nonetheless, the rams were different because it was a larger thing. So they wanted to make it clear that's a ram, because in between a kid, and a ram is something called a palgus. An animal, a sheep or a goat, in its 13th month is neither an ayil, or is neither yet an ayil, or is not, and is no longer a gedi. It's something called a palgus. For 1 month, it's nishtahi, nishtaher. It's neither here nor there, and it is no good for a carbon. So you can either bring kids, gedis, from 0 to 12, or ayil from 13 and above. Very good. And the sinner token was brought for the nesachim that was brought of the 3 animals of the Mitzayra, the Hoila, the Chatas, and the Hoila, the Chata, and the 2 Chatas. Whoever required the nesachim, Hoila Floy Eitzel Yochanan would go to Yochanan, who was appointed over the stamps. The Noisin like Mois would give him money, and they would receive from him a token or a stamp. But they would go then to Achia with the stamps, who was an administrator under the Sachim, and give him the token, and he receive from him the Sachim. This is very similar to the way it takes to get into Disney World. First you buy the tickets, then you get a token, and then you can't get past the turnstile unless you show them your token. So, La'erev, at night, boy, and the 2 of them, Yochanan and Achia, would come together, and boy, and say, Eitzel Zeh, the Achia, boy, and Achia would bring out all the tokens, all the stamps, Umikabel, Kinez, and Mois, and they would receive from Yochanan the corresponding amount of money. They would match up the tokens against the money received. If there was a shortfall, he would suffer the loss. Yochanan would be required to reimburse the hektish from his own funds. If there was more money somehow, he'd siru the hektish. Hektish gain. Because hektish always gets the upper hand. Hektish never loses. It's like the casino. The house never loses. So the Beis Hamikdash hand was always ala yoina, and it never lost. If somebody loses his token, so you go to Disneyland and you pay $1,000 for a family of 4 for a ticket, and then as you're getting everybody together, you lose the tickets. What do? They wait for him until the evening. If they find a surplus of money equal to the value of his tickets, then they say, okay, no problem, we'll give you, and tomorrow you can do your nesachim. But if there is no surplus, they would not give it to him. And in fact, the name of the day, they would put the date. They would put the date on it because of the Ganovim, of the deceivers, so they shouldn't use their amusement park tickets a different day. So you see, nothing changed. Everything is learned from the Beis Hamikdash, and this is the way today. Unfortunately, we've got secular Beis Hamikdash slider, terribly so, and they're using exactly the same system.
And that's why, like, for example, like in Disney World, they change the color of the tickets every day.
Good. And Charlie, be a little patient. You'll see the Gemara is going to say this is not good enough. The day they put in a lot more stringency, and then make that comment again, and you'll see. Says the Gemara. So the Gemara says again, According to Ben Azai, it says we have 5 tokens, 5 slots. Why do you need a separate one for the poor sinner? Why can't he make do with the Gedi? Because that's all he brings. All he does is bring the Gedi, the small sheep or goat, together with the birds. That's all he has to bring. And the birds don't get the Sachin. Only the Gedi gets a Sachin. So just use the Gedi token. Says the Gemara, maybe Luga Imai. Because according to Ben Azai, the poor Mitzvah brings his additional lug of oil needed for his own thumbs and ears, which we'll explain in a minute, together with his offering that he would purchase from Yochanan. So he needed a token which included that lug. In other words, there's two by a Mitzvah, there's 2 different things going out. There's oil that's required as nesachim, as libations, that come along with the carbon that you bring as a mitzvah. But second is required oil that the mitzvah himself has to dip his thumb and ears into, as well as the blood of the carbon that he brings has to dip into there. That's a separate issue. Says the Gemara, the Ram Kirabbanan maybe could be. According to the Rabbanan, he brings 1 token from the Gedi, from Achia, which entitles him to 1 lug, and add the extra lug of oil he brings from home. So 1, he brings from home, the oil that he's going to require for his own thumb and ear. For the carbon, he takes from the kid. He doesn't take 2 lugs of oil from us. He doesn't take 2 lugan of oil from us. He only takes 1. Says the Gemara, Nichse Rochel B'Kamel. What is the amount brought for the Nesachim of a ewe, right? Which is an adult female sheep, which is more than a year old. By the way, you'll notice that it's called Rochel, which of course is the name of our matriarch, Rochel, which means sheep. This led to many Jewish names named after animals. So, for an example, my grandmother, of blessed memory, my father's mother, was called Hinda, which is either a deer or a chicken, right? Hinda, right? Zav is a wolf, right? There's many. Ari is a lion. So on and so. Tzvi is a deer. And so you see, even from way back at the beginning, we were naming children after animals. It was very cute, right? And so we named them cute little names. Rochala, little Shepsala. So anyways, here we go. Nichse Rochal B'Kamel. Min man de Tanina. This can be learned from the Pasuk 14b5. We're close to today's daf. Kedi mishamis nichse soy gedolim kedanim zecharim and nekevus. The Kedi token, which served in the Zochim of sheep and goats, large, small, male or female. Hado Amri Nichse Rochu Nichse Kedi. This comes to teach us because you say the words Gedolim, large, and Nikavus and female, large females happen to be Rochels, large sheep that are more than a year old. Says the Gemara Vaita, Dixiv, Kocha Yasser Lashoro Echad, Oil La'ayil Ho'echad, Oil Seu Kavosim, Oil Be'izim. So it should be done to each ox, for each ram, for a kid among the sheep or among the goats. L'shoro echad loma nema. Why does it say for each ox? What's the extra word? Each. Magid shaloi chilak, to teach us that we don't differentiate between the nesachim of a calf within an ox in its first year, and the nesachim of a mature ox from year 2 and up. Shahaya bedin, because logic would have said the other way. Bein not sign time nesachim. The offspring of sign of a flock requires nesachim. Who ben baka time nesachim, and the offspring of cattle also require nesachim. Since we find that the Torah separates the offspring between the nesachim of a lamb in its first year, requiring 1 isar in a flour and 3 lugin of oil and wine, and the nesachim of a ram, a sheep in its second year, which gets 2 and 4, 2 isra of flour and 4 isra of oil and wine. We are now on today's daf. Es Baba Manale. Lakach Nechlat. We're on today's daf. 15a1. Lakach Nechalak Ben Nichse Egel and Nichse Shah. Therefore, he taught we should distinguish with regard to cattle between the nesachim of a calf in its first year and the nesachim of an ox in its second year. The same way that an ayil gets doubled up. An ayil, which is a 2-year-old sheep or goat, an ayil gets 2 isurin of flour, as opposed to a gedi, which only gets 1 isurin of flour. I might have said, therefore, the same thing applies with regard to a calf. A calf gets 3 isurin of flour. I might have argued a full-grown ox, a full-grown shar, should get 4 the isurin of flour. Talmud loyme kochi yasel ashar ha'echad. Magid shloichilik ben nichsei egel and nichsei shar, that it's always 3 isurin of flour and 6 isurin of wine and oil. So if that's the case, says the Gemara, oil ayil nemar. Why does it say oil ayil, especially since it says it in a previous pasuk? Shahaya b'din. Since we see that the Torah separates, distinguishes between the chosim of a sheep in its first year, a gedi, and the chosim of a sheep in its second year, a rochel or an ayil within the chosim of the second year is greater than the first year. In the first year, it's 1 and 3. In the second year, it's 2 and 4. Right? Then I would therefore say logically we should keep moving, and there should be a difference between a 2-year-old sheep, i.e., between year 1 and year 2, and a sheep that's older from year 2 to year 3. You get an additional isurin of flour and an additional lug of oil and wine. No, there's only 2 separation. There's an ayil, there is a gedi, which gets 1 isurin of flour and 3 isurin and 3 lugin of wine and oil. And in year 2, when it becomes an ayil, it gets 2 isurin of flour and 4 isurin and 4 lugim of wine and oil, and that's it. From that point on, there's no more addition. So, pray to Gemara. Why did it say oil is said regarding the sheep? If we see there's a difference between the sachem of a male lamb in its first year and then the sachem of a ram in its second year, which moves up, which goes from a regular one is 1 and 3, and the ram is 2 and 4. I might think there should be a difference between the nesachim of a female lamb in its first year and the nesachim of a female lamb in its second year. Talmud Loimar said that only by the males is there a difference. By the females, there's no difference. It remains 1 and 3. 1 isurin of flour, 3 lugin of oil and wine. Right, the Gemara, so what's the oi, the and or among the goats? Because I might have said as follows: since we see that the Torah separates between the sachem of a lamb and the sachem of a ram, I might think there's a difference between a young male kid goat and the sachem of a he goat of more than a year old. Talmud Loima oy beizim. Hikish cotton should be easy. Legodel should be tayoshin. Mazeh b'shloisha lugim. Avseh b'shloisha lugim. that in the case of the kid goat, you offer with 3 lugin of wine. In other words, 1 isurin of flour and 3 lugin of wine and oil. Have to, even when it grows up, you still stick to 1 isurin of flour and 3 isurim of oil and wine. Okay, so if you really wanted to see this real quick, let's read over number 9. Number 9 in the Ox Scroll on 15a1. The Gemara concludes that among the 2 general classifications, cattle and flock, they have the tzachim brought with them. The requirements are generally the same for each classification, with the exception of a ram. So all goats and sheep require 1 isurin of flour and 3 lugin of oil and wine, 1 to 3. Other than the ram, which requires 2 isurin of flour with 4 lugin of oil and wine, 2 to 4. And all cattle, without exception, requiring a succum of 3 isurin of flour and 6 lugin of oil and wine. And that is as good a summary of the Gemara that we've learned till now. Says the Gemara of Agdam. Now, Charlie, back to what you were talking about before, that on the ticket, the Shem Hayom Kosev, they would write the day that it was issued because of the people who deceive. Like the Gemara, but we got a problem. If you were to match that day by returning a same day of the week on a different week. So you bought a Tuesday ticket, and he shows up a week later to Disney World another Tuesday. He's going to be able to get in to use the same ticket. Same Mishmah because of alone. With regard to the Beis Hamikdash, the name of the Mishmah was written on it. Since there were 24 Mashmaros of Kahanim, so they would each week had a different Mishmar, so they would write the Mishmah. Pray to Gemara, what are you talking about? Agag Ba'atzma, Shazai Goysa Mishmah. It's if there's only 24 Mishmaros of Kahanim, that means they arrive twice a year. Every Mishmah served twice a year, once every 6 months. So the guy will hold on to his ticket and use it again 6 months later. And he'll be able to sneak into Disney World, in this case, the Beis Hamikdash, for free the next time. And for the Gemara, Shem Hayom, Shem Shabbos, Shem Chodesh Hayakosef Aleim. The name of the day, the week, and the month were written upon them. Afilu roitzel lezayig a motzu lezayigin. They wanted to match it. They would be unable to match it. They would be unable to match it because they kept on adding information. So here again, I make the point that we began the day with, including with their being suspicious of Moshe Rabbeinu. We're dealing with the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Avodah, Yom Kippur, all of it. When it comes to money, all bets are off. Trust but verify. It doesn't matter what the situation is. And that's why I said, when you run a shul, this is the reason why every shul, and again, I laud Boca Jewish Center because they do it remarkably well. And Charlie gets all the credit for this. What do you call it? That there are separations and duplications so that there is no suspicion that funds are being used where funds should not be used. It requires
suspicions there are, but we have a lot of protocol to try to disprove their suspicions.
Okay, so then let me rephrase that, Charlie. The suspicions are part and parcel of being Jewish. If they were worried about it in the Beis Hamikdash, they could worry about it in Boca Jewish Center. If they could say that Moshe Rabbeinu had fat thighs and he was embezzling funds, Charlie, if they ever said that about
that is terrible.
but
it never happened.
It probably never did, but Daddy, the truth
never happened.
No, but the truth is
You have to take precaution, but
You
it
have to
doesn't
take
even happen.
right, and that's why I said the Jewish way is trust but verify. We do trust. Everybody has a cheskes kashrus.
Kabed v'chashdei.
Right. Chabed and chashkei. Trust but verify. Let's go a little further for another 10 minutes, and then we'll stop wherever we get to. Halacha 4 on 15a2. Stay lishlik chayim English. That means besides the 13 pushkas, collection boxes that existed that we're going to talk about a little later in this parak. Besides them, there were 2 other chambers that essentially had slots in the door that were there in the base of English. Achas lishkas chashoyin. One was called the chamber of the discreet. Achas lishkas hakelim, and one was called the chamber of the kelim of the utensils. Lishkas chashoyin. What was the chamber of the discreet? Those who fear God-fearing people, sin-fearing people, would deposit tzedakah discreetly, and the paupers who came from aristocratic families would sustain themselves from it discreetly. From here we learn that tzedakah is a partnership. There are givers and there are takers. It's a symbiotic relationship. If there were no takers, there wouldn't be givers. If there weren't givers, there wouldn't be takers. And you have to dive into the Rebbeinu Shleilim every single day that he should reward you and should make you from the givers and not the takers. But there's always givers and there are always takers, and there is a gal. Nobody is rich forever. Nobody is poor forever. But within families, there is a wheel from generation to generation to generation. By rule, riches last for 3 generations. 1 generation works hard and makes the money. The second generation sustains the money. By the 3rd generation, they already have a silver spoon in the mouth, and there's a lot of people eating from the trough. By the 4th generation, we're back at the beginning again. How do you know this? Because once upon a time, there were names like Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Getty. Ask any kid today, they have no idea who they are. They never heard of Rockefeller. They never heard of Getty. They never heard of Carnegie. They never heard of Vanderbilt. Right? They never even heard of J.P. Morgan, except they think he started Chase Bank. Right? But that's it. Because what was up doesn't stay up. And what was down doesn't stay down. Steve Jobs built the first computer in a garage in Palo Alto in California. The founder of Microsoft dropped out of college to start Microsoft. So Google went to Yeshiva of Flatbush. Sergey Brin went to Yeshiva of Flatbush till 8th grade. Right? All of the new people. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, 30 years ago didn't exist. That's the way life works. Okay, and so you have to know this, and that is the reason why you give. The best way of giving is matan b'sefer and sefer, so that the poor people who come from aristocratic families can take care of themselves discreetly. Lishchas hakelim, the chamber of the utensils. Kol mishu benaded kli, whoever pledged a kli, a utensil, for the bedek habayis, for the general fund of the base of Mikdash, Sarkoi l'soiche would throw it into the chamber. And every 30 days, the Gizbarim would open up the chamber. The Kol Kalisha Matzavoy Tzarech Bedek Habayis, and any keli that was found there that could be used for the upkeep of the temples. For an example, hammers and axes. They would leave it there and use it. With Sharon and Karim and the rest, which could not be used, were sold to the Mayim Noitzum, the Vedic Abayis, and witnessed that the treasury would use it for the upkeep of the Beit of the temple, similar to the golf tournament that BJC is having on May 20th, right? You play
Actually,
golf.
it's going to be on May 24th.
May 24th, sorry.
We changed it.
Right after Shavuos. What do you call it? So anybody who's, what do you call it? To make it? Great. The golf is not important. It's paying that's important. Remember that. You don't actually have to show up for the golf. Now, right, let's have our priorities in line. Anyway, says the Gemara. Rav Yaakov bar Aidi and Rav Yitzchak bar Nachman havi panosim. Rav Yaakov bar Aidi and Rav Yitzchak bar Nachman were panosim, the parnas, the community leader, right? Bahavin Yavin the Rav Chama boy Rav Yeshua dinar, and they would give Rav Chama, the father of Yeshua, dinar, who Yosef the Churonin, and he would give it to others. So, in other words, the poor people who were embarrassed to accept charity directly from the hands of the communal leaders directly. So that this is very important. The
Gabbai Tzedakah.
The Gabbai Tzedakah. But I want to just give me a second. The Taklin Chadatim, where it says Gemara. Let's go just a little further. Where it says they gave. We'll get in a minute. Let's go further in the Gemara. Rav Zechayer Chasnei the Rav Levi Havi Hakol Melizin Olav. Everybody gossiped, said Lashon Hara about Zechayer, the son-in-law of Rav Levi. Amrin Deloit Tzorich Hu Nosif, saying he did not need tzedakah, and he nonetheless collected tzedakah. Damach, when he died, they investigated and they found that he was distributing it all to others who were needy but were too embarrassed to take it for themselves. Rav Chanina bar Papa havi maflek mitzvah b'layla. Rav Chanina bar Papa would distribute the charity at night. So the charity was given secretly and the recipients would not be embarrassed. Now look at the Taklin Chadatim, where it says Gemara, it's 1, 2, 3, Balayla, Mishun Matan B'Seiser, in order to give it discreetly, unknowingly, Shaloi Levayish HaMikablan, so that the Mikablan, those who are accepting the tzedakah, should not get embarrassed. Umashi Kosef Tav Deloy Yabinalai, because there's a Gemara. The Gemara says, what the Gemara says in many places, that in fact at the Rambam Pascal is Halacha, better not to give tzedakah than embarrassing the one you're giving it to. If the one you're giving it to will be embarrassed, in other words, tzedakah is not just giving charity, but it's the one mitzvah that also has how you give the charity. That is an important part of giving tzedakah. It's a two-part mitzvah. There's a chelik of the mitzvah where you have to give tzedakah. The second half of the mitzvah is how you give the tzedakah. If you give it in a manner that the person is embarrassed, not only did you not make time the mitzvah tzedakah, but you now have the problem of vayish b'nei chaverei berabim, that you embarrass somebody berabim, and the Gemara says better that you should not have given than it should have given. That's a very important lesson in tzedakah. It's not just what, but how, and it is part and parcel of the din of tzedakah. And the Rambam is clear on this. It's kedai to look up the words in the Rambam, because you can see how intrinsically it's involved in the idea of charity. Chad Zimna, says the Gemara. We'll just go for another 5 minutes. Chad Zman, Pogaba Riba in Deruchayo. One time the chief of the evil spirits met Rav Chanina bar Papa in the middle of the night. Amalei, Loikain Alton Rebbe. Did not the Rebbe itself teach us, like Sagi Geburayecha, not move the boundaries of your neighbor? Meaning, the nighttime is our time, said the demon, as it were, the shade. Not your time. What are you doing out at night? Amalei, the Lord can't say, but does it not say, Matam b'sefer b'chafei af, a gift in secret overturns anger? Now the name of the chief of the spirits was af, anger. So he got scared. He became frightened of him, and he ran away from it. Again, I'm just saying the Gemara. Obviously, this is an esoteric Gemara, and exactly what it means is beyond my pay grade. Amar Rav Yoina, it's not written in Tehillim. Praise be he who gives to the needy. Ella, like we said before, Ashrei Maskil Esdal. Ashrei Maskil Esdal. Praise is the one who contemplates the needy, who thinks about it. Zeshu Mistakel b'mitzvah heichei lasoisan. This is one who looks at the mitzvah of giving tzedakah, how best to do it, so that there's no demeaning of the poor person. It's not enough to give money. It's how you give the money. When he saw a person from a rich family who had become bereft of his estate, he would say to him, Bini, I heard that you're going to get a Yerusha, an inheritance from someplace else, and you'll soon be out of your financial problem. 1583. Tulva at Pereya. Take your money now, and when you get your inheritance, you'll repay me. Once the poor person took the money, would then tell him, Matano hilach into matana. So how can he lie to him? The answer is he's not lying to him. What he was saying to him is that it's a galgal. Yesterday your family was rich. Today they're poor. Somewhere down the line, in the days of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, they will be rich again. And my family, which might have money now, will somewhere down the line, unfortunately, have a need. I will also have a need for money. And in that day, your children or great-grandchildren and so on will give money and pay back my great-grandchildren. The idea is that there is a galgal. Throw your bread onto the water so that one day it will come back to you. And that's the idea, because it's a galgal. The second thing is that you can, when it comes to saving face of a person, do what you have to do. And the best way to do it in many ways is if a person, when you lend somebody money, everybody knows this. When you lend somebody money, you better lend money that you could lose, because the odds are you're never getting it back. That's just the rule of life. When you lend people money, you're lending it to people who don't have the money. The odds are you're never getting the money back. The best thing to do is give them the money and say it's a loan, and that one day, if and when you have the capacity to pay it back, lend the money to somebody else. Lend the money to somebody else. And when you lend it to them, tell them when they have the ability to pay back, they should lend it to somebody else. That's the real proper way of doing it. Okay? Weiter. Nehemia ish sichem pogaba Yerushalmi echad. A poor Yerushalmi met Nehemia the pit digger. Amalei zilchei imi chadet tanegoylo. Nehemia said to him, Nehemia said to the poor person, gain for me zechusim, gain for me merit through this hen. In other words, by me giving you tzedakah, I gain more than you do. Amalei, Nehemia said to Yerushalmi, haloch to me.
I think you skipped something.
What did I skip?
Chia Barada.
Oh, you're right. Chia Barada. Thank you, Daddy. Chia Barada. There were, in our days, there were elders. Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, if you gave them tzedakah, they would accept. Mimposa came like happiness. But after Yom Kippur, they would not accept tzedakah. Avim the shot and gabel. Our year's money, the budget for how much money we were going to receive this year has already been decided on Yom Kippur. So what's the difference if I take tzedakah or I get the money from somewhere else? So I'd rather get the money from somewhere else than take tzedakah. Halavai that we should have such emunah and betachon. Nechemia is sichim pagabay Yerushalmi echad amalei zoche imi chadet hanakoyim. And Nechemia said, "Be zeich for me through this hen." And amalei, then Nechemia said to the Yerushalmi, not only should I be zeich by giving you tzedakah, having to me say the kupas. That here's enough money to buy a piece of beef. Beef was actually cheaper than chickens. So he said, listen, I'm going to give you money for beef, which will cost me $10 as opposed to money for chicken, which is $20. And the poor boy took the money, bought the beef, ate it, and died. And the Chemia was crying out, saying, come and eulogize the Chemia's murder victim, because I gave him money for beef, but his digestive system was only used to hens, and I killed him with the digestive system. Let's just go a little further. A famous story. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
So, and unfortunately, I have to leave.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I have an appointment at 9:30. Maybe since we're only the three of us, should we catch up and get to tomorrow's daf?
I'd like to get at least to the end of the parak. I'd like to. Daddy, can you stay? Let me put it to you this way. Daddy,
I can, but I'll catch up, and by tomorrow I'll be at 15.
By tomorrow we'll be on the dot. Yeah, so give me a second. We'll be on the dot. We're going to go to. Yeah, let me tell you where we're going to go. We're going to go to. We're going to go to the top of Tezayin Amud Aleph. We're going to go to the top of Tezayin Amud Aleph, 16A1. The right hand, the right column. Daddy, can you stick around for about 15 minutes?
We want to go to Aloha Dalet?
No, I want to go further. No, I want to go further. I want to go to the top of Ted Zion Amud Aleph. All the way to Ted Zion Amud Aleph. To today's daf. To the top, to today's daf. Mishnignas Ha'orim. When the ark was hidden, when the Aron HaKodesh was hidden. That's where I'm going to go to. It's quick Gemara. It's very quick Gemara.
I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, Charlie, that's where we'll start tomorrow.
All right, I'll catch up.
The top
later.
of Ted Zion Amud Aleph, the top of 16A1.
I got it. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a good. See you. Where are you, Yitzchak? Yitzchak? That's it.
Daddy, can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
I got lost there. Okay, so let's continue. You ready?
Where are you now?
15A3. 15A3. Tezvav Amud Aleph.
Yeah, but where in Tezvav?
Nochem Ish Gamzu. The right column. You see the right column in the art scroll?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Famous story. Nochem Ish Gamzu are you Moilef Doim Lebeis Chayma. Nochem Ish Gamzu was bringing a gift to his father-in-law's house. Pogaboy, and he was called Nochem Ish Gamzu because he was famous for saying Gamzu L'Toiva.
Right.
This too shall be for good. Pogaboy Moichish Chin Echad. He met a man who was afflicted with boils, who was very, very sick. Amalei, the man said, Zoche imi memade asigabach. Please gain merit with me to what you have with you. In other words, give me something to eat. Amalei Nachem said, sure, but Mechza, upon my return, let me drop the stuff off by my father-in-law who's waiting, and then I'll come right back to feed you. Miss. Nochem Nishkam returned and found him dead. Rabbi Omar Kigle, and Nochem, facing the corpse of the unfortunate person, said, the eyes that saw you, but did not prompt me to provide for you, should immediately become blind. When the hands that did not stretch out to help you should be cut off. And the feet that did not run to help you should be broken. All of this happened. When Akiva came to visit him, when he saw Rav Nachum, when he saw Nachum Ishkabzu, Rabbi Akiva said, woe to me that I should see you in such a state. Nachum said to him, woe is to me that I did not see you one day in such a state. Why are you cursing me? Said Rabbi Akiva to him. Why are you spurring Yisurim? Yisurim makin averis. Yisurim remove averis. He said, I brought the Yisurim onto myself by my actions, and I accept them completely with Yahava. We are now on 15A4. 15A4. Again, another story on how you have to be so sensitive in how you give tzedakah. Rav Hoshia Rabba Habi Rabbi Divrei Chad Sagi Denoira. Rabbi Hoshia the Great, the Rebbe of the son, his son had a Rebbe who was blind. So this Rabbi Hoshia the Great, Rabbi Hoshia Agadol, the Rabbi Hoshia Rabba, his son was being taught by a blind Rebbe. Rabbi Hoshia would come every day to eat with the Rebbe, to honor the Rebbe. One time Rabbi Hoshia had guests. He was not able to come to the blind person's table to eat with them. In the evening, when the guests left, Rabbi Hoshia went up to his residence, to the blind Rebbe's residence, to apologize to him. Even though Rabbi Hoshia was Rabbi Hoshia Rabbi Hoshia the Great, he lowered himself to go to the simple Rebbe, the blind Rebbe of his son. Amalei, Rabbi Hoshia said to him, Master, he called him a master. Master, do not be angry with me. Begin to because I had guests today who did not know you, so I was concerned. They said I should not slight the honor of the master on this day. Begin for this reason I did not dine with the master today. He didn't want to bring the guests to him because he was blind. He figured it'd be uncomfortable. They might make comments. So the blind Rebbe said to Rabbi Hoshia, you have appeased the one who is seeing but cannot see. Because I'm blind, so I'm seeing but cannot see. The Mehi, the Rabbi Shloilo, who cannot be seen but sees, except your appeasement. Amalei, where did you get this clever saying? I am the one who's seen but cannot be seen, and you should be blessed by the one who is not seen but can see. Amalei, he said, me Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov all chad the saginor l'tarte. For a blind man once went to the city of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov to collect money. He came there to collect money. He also blamed Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov l'reim. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov saw, and when they were supposed to sit together, when he came to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov to collect money, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov made sure to sit at a place below the blind man. He put him at the front table, and he sat below him on the side table. So people should say, this blind man must if he wasn't a great person, then Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov would not be sitting in below him. He wouldn't have given him so much covet. As a result, he got a lot of money. People were throwing money at this blind Armalite. Now, Amalai, the blind person knew that they were giving him far more than usually he got. Amalai, my Heshem, what's going on? Why is everybody being so nice to me? Amalahu, Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, how could the Rabbi Minech? What if Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov is sitting beneath you? You must be a great man. Realizing what Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov had done for him, he said the following tefillah for him. You have done a great chesed upon the one who is seen but cannot be seen, because I'm blind, I could be seen but cannot be seen. That he who sees, the Rabbi who sees but cannot be seen, to do kindness upon you. The Lord Dilma, there was another Ma'aser. Rav Chama Bar Chanina and Rabbi Yoshia having metalta be'ilay the kanista deloy. Rav Chama Bar Chanina and Rabbi Yoshia the Great was strolling among the shuls of the city of Lod. Rav Chama Bar Chanina and Rabbi Yoshia, Rav Chama Bar Chanina said to Rabbi Yoshia, how much money my father sank into building these shuls here? Amalei. How many lives your father? How many lives your father sank into the shuls here? Were there no people toiling in the study of Torah? In other words, instead of building up a beautiful shul, you guys should have had simple shuls and supported those guys who were sitting and learning. Rav Oven Ovar Elaine Pate. Rav Oven donated money to make fancy gates. We are now on Ovid Bays. 15B1. 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 The Sidra Rabbah for the Great Assembly. Also, Rabbi.
Wait, I'm not quite clear. What was the purpose of that conversation there?
So the conversation was like this, Dad. He was praising his forefathers by saying they, Baruch Hashem, built up beautiful shuls, beautiful edifices of shuls.
Yeah.
Came to and said, who said he did such beautiful shuls? There were plenty of poor Talmidei Chachamim they could have given them money to. Better to make a simple shul, a shtibel, and give your money to support Torah. In other words, we don't need to build cathedrals.
Right.
We don't need to build cathedrals. We need to support Torah.
Well, that's what he meant. Yeah, okay.
That's what you'll see again. You'll see it clearer in the next one. Rav Oven Ovar Ilay Tatoi. Rav Oven donated money for fancy gates. You have it? We're turning the Amud Beis now. Tezvav Amud Beis. This Rabbah to the great assembly. There was going to be a big assembly. Also, Rabbana Lagabi, Rabbana came to him, Amalei. So Rav Oven said to Rabbana, do you see what I've done? I made a beautiful gate, a beautiful entrance, so that people should feel excited when they come in. Amalei, Rabbana answered him back, Vayishkav Yisrael Esayu Vayiven Hechalolei. And the people, the Jewish people, forgot their maker, and they built sanctuaries. They build beautiful sanctuaries, but the Eibishter sei vergessen. Lo have ben nash dilmi diaraisa. Are there no people who are toiling in the study of Torah that you could support? We didn't need the fancy entrance. In other words, think about it like this: the great Egyptian empire, which stood for 2,000 years, has the pyramids, has the Sphinx. The Romans have the Colosseum and Titus's Arch, etc., etc. And yet they're forgotten. They're in the dustbin of history. What do the Jews have? We have no buildings. We didn't build the Maris HaMachpelah. Hortus built it. Suleiman the Great fixed it up. Got nothing to do with us. We didn't do that. You know what we have? We're sitting today and learning the Talmud. We're learning the Talmud. We're learning. We're doing everything. We're doing it the way it's supposed to be because the lifetime, and with it, we have dominated the thought process of the Western world. The morals of the Western world are all Jewish. The system of government in the United States, the three branches of government, are the Jewish branches of government. So on and so forth. The dignity of man, that man is, that, what do you call it? That because the Rebbeinu Shalom endows every human being with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the idea of Yiddishkeit, that no man is greater than the other. We're all built in the image of God, etc. That's Torah. That's what keeps us alive. Let's go back to Tani. We learned.
There was a story. I remember the Rabbi Horowitz said it many years ago. I think it was Rav Gifter.
Sure, from Cleveland.
He went to Italy,
right?
And one day he was walking by the Arch of Titus,
right?
You know about it.
Yeah.
And on the Arch of Titus, there's a relief showing the Bnei Yisrael going in exile, in chains, and everything, and the Kalim of the Beis Mikdash was taken captive
to the Vatican. Right.
Yeah, so he wrote on a piece of paper, and he fixed it. He put it on the thing. He said, "Yes, Titus, you thought, that you were destroying our people, and that you will remain here forever. Look at me now. Look at us.
Right.
Meaning the Jewish people are here, and you are long gone and forgotten.
Long gone. Right. The Roman Empire is gone and forgotten, and the Jews are still a vibrant people because our vibrancy is not built on big buildings. That's not it. It's what takes place inside the Heichel that counts.
Right.
And that really means the Heichel, that's each individual human being. Tani,
how far you want to go?
I want to go all the way down this Amid, all the way to the top of Tez Zayin. It's going to take us 5 minutes.
I don't know if I have to change my kitchen from.
Daddy, give me 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. It's going to take 10 minutes.
Where are you now? You finished the Perek?
No, we're about to finish the Perek. Tani, we're up to the third line from the top. Third line from the top.
Third line.
Tani Kodshei HaMizbeach.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Yeah, okay.
Tani Kodshei HaMizbeach Maitzinas Aroya Lahem Kodshei Bedek Habayis. The funds for Kodshei HaMizbeach, if the Kodshei HaMizbeach, they're allowed to be taken from items that were given to the Bedek Habayis. That means if the total Shekalim collected for the carpet seaboard, for the communal offerings, was short, if we ran out of money, you're allowed to replenish it from the general fund. But not the other way. If the general fund runs short, you're not allowed to take money from the money that was collected for the Kachim Mizbeach for the communal offerings. Says the Gemara about Tanina and K Klei Shematzaboy Tzarech LeBedek Habayis V'Nichanaisei. Any keli that was put into the room that was good for the Bedek Habayis, you would leave it. V'Hashan Imkarin and any other keli that was thrown in there that was not needed was sold. V'Demeim Noifel Bedek Habayis. So you see over here that the monies were separate. You weren't allowed to use Bedek Habayis money for. You're not allowed to use Bedek Habayis money for Kachim Mizbeach. No. Kaini Masnisin. This is the correct explanation of the Mishnah. When the Mishnah says that the proceeds would go to the Bedek Habayis, it means that the proceeds would go back Lishchat's Bedek Habayis, to the chamber of the Bedek Habayis, to the bank room of the Bedek Habayis. But if the Shekalim runs short, then you can go ahead and grab money. You can take money from the general fund and replenish the communal offering fund of the Kachim Mizbeach. We should return to you. Now we're up to the 6th parak. Now, since we were talking about before two different collections, the collections for the Bedek Habayis and the collections for Tzedakah and the collections of Kalim, the new parak says, by the way, you should know, Shloisha Asa Shofros, there were 13 collection boxes shaped like shofros, wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. Shloisha Asa Shulchanos, there were 13 tables. Shloisha Esei Mishtachves Tayim Mikdash, and 13 places of bowing down in the Beis Hamikdash. Shel Beis Rabbi Gamliel, Shel Beis Rav Chananya Segan Kahanim, in the house of Rabbi Gamliel and the house of Chananya Segan, the vice Kohen Gadol. They would bow down in 14 places in the Beis Hamikdash. The Heichen Hoisi Yisera, where was the extra place? Keneged Dir Ha'etzim, opposite the wood chamber. That chamber that was holding the wood. Why? Shekem is saying because we have a tradition, Biyadon Me'aboy saying that came from the hands of our forefathers, Shesham Ha'arein Nignas, that the Aron HaKodesh was hidden there in the area of the wooden chamber. There was a case of a kohen who was busying himself in the wood chamber, locked after for good purposes. It looks like he was playing around. And he noticed that one of the stones on the floor was different than the others. It was slightly raised. And so from here we see that the floor from the first base of English was not destroyed, or they laid a new floor by the second base of English, but it didn't lay exactly perfectly. He came and he was deciding to talk to his chaverim, like Hipsig Ligmar Sadova, but before he could actually say what was going on, but his soul departed, he passed away. And from there they knew for certain that the Aron HaKodesh was hidden there. Says the Gemara, Tani, these tzedakah boxes, these collection boxes were curved. Narrow at the top, and wide at the bottom. Because of the swindler. So picture a shayfer, it's where you blow it.
You can't get to it.
And you can't get to it. Now, very interesting that otters and opossums, the way you capture them is you take a cup, which is wide on top and narrow on the bottom, and you put a shiny thing in the bottom, like a shiny metal cap. They'll reach in to grab it. But because now they can't get their hand out unless they leave go of the metal, they won't leave go of the shiny item. So they just stand there, and then you can capture them. It turns out that people are no different. Exactly. If they stick their hands in, they're going to get stuck. And in this case, we said further, we're going to turn the shofar upside down. So they're not going to be able to get in even. And that's why pushkas always have a small little slot, and you put the money in, and it's locked on the bottom. And again, because money is money is money is money, and money does strange things to people. Says the Mishnah that the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark, was hidden beneath the Lishcha Ha'etzim, the Dir Ha'etzim, the chamber of wood. So now we're going to get into this. We're going to go right down the Omer. Tani, the same Rabbi Eliezer, Ha'aron Goyel Yimon LeBabel. No, in fact, the Aron HaKodesh was exiled with the Jewish people to Babel. Ma'atam, where do you know this? The pasuk says, Lo Yivoset Dober Amar Hashem. And the pasuk says as follows. The pasuk says in Malachim, behold, the days are coming when everything in your house and that which your scientists have accumulated until this day will be carried off to Babel. Not a thing will be left, said Hashem. Ein davar elo shehadiburais l'soichai. It's only talking about all the first to the Aron HaKodesh, which inside has this Aseret Satibrais, right? And we're on 15b3. 15.
That remains, you mean?
No, that one was also said. No, Rabbi Eliezer is saying that he went to Golus as well, because Hashem said, "Lo yivosed davar Amar Hashem." Not a thing will be left, said Hashem. Ein davar, nothing. Ella, what is davar? What is the word? Davar? Elisha Dibrais.
Difference is sulfur.
And so it says, Uleshuva Sashona Shalach Melech Nebuchadnezzar Vayabayu Bivavelo Im Klei Chemdas Beis Hashem. And at the turn of the year, the king Nebuchadnezzar sent and had him, that would be Chizkiyo, bring to Babel together with the precious articles of the temple of Hashem. Ezu Klei Chemdas, what is considered the precious article of the Beis Hashem in the house of Hashem? Zeh ha'oroi. This must be the Aron HaKodesh.
So then, what's the story about that Kohen that so the stone is there? So it wasn't there anymore.
So let's keep going. Keep going. We only know the part of the story. Or as somebody used to say on NPR, and now for the rest of the story. Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish said, no, the Aron was hidden in its place, by the Beis Hamikdash, by the by the chamber of the wood. Hadu because the pasuk is written, Vayarichu habadim vayero roish habadim min hakodesh al pnei hadivir v'lo yero achutza. They extended the poles so that the tip of the poles was seen from the Heichal on the surface of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, yet they were not seen from the outside. And the pasuk says, and they remained there ad hayom hazeh, until this day, which means that the Aron HaKodesh is there until this day. So it says the pasuk, it says they were seen, and they were not seen. How is this possible? Seen but not seen. The poles protruded and extended into the curtain like the two breasts of a woman which protrude from her clothing. So now the Gemara says, the lish was hidden, like our Mishnah says, in the dira eight. So we got three sheetas. Rabbi Eliezer says it was sent to Bavel. The second one says no, it was hidden in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Somehow it's sunk into the ground of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, but there it is. And the Rabbanim say no, it was hidden in the dira eitzim, in the lishchas eitzim, in the chamber of the wood. There was an incident with a blemished kohen who could not do the regular avodah, but he wanted to be involved in the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. And he was peeling wood in the chamber of the wood. In other words, to take out any worms, to get rid of any wormy wood, so that it should only be good wood that would be available to be used on the Mizbeach. This he could do because it's not an actual avodah within the heichal. It's on the side. And he saw that one part of the floor was different from the other parts. Either it looked different or it was raised a bit. He went to talk to his chaverim. So they knew that the Aron was hidden there. Tani Rav Hoshia, Hikish Allah Bekornas, the Kohen who noticed the floor was like he had hit it with a hammer. He hit it with the hammer in order to.
It was hollow.
Yeah. And a fire emerged and burnt him.
So I'm surprised that the Arabs they're constantly digging up there.
So I'll tell you why. So it's very interesting. In fact, if you do an infrared, if you go up on top and you do an infrared, you'll discover that the dome of the rock is not where the Beis Hamikdash was. The rock that they have over there is Eben Shasir. That was the place possibly of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach was there. Those from the rocks of the Mizbeach. Actually, the courtyard that they have where they always walk, that's probably the place where the Beis Hamikdash was, actually in the other direction. like this.
Yeah,
And
in fact, I
instead-
saw a video that the archaeologists figured
Right.
out that the Beis Hamikdash was not where the mosque is. It's
No,
on the side of it,
it's on the side. And you know how you know?
facing the other way, right?
In fact, I'll tell you exactly what it's facing. It's facing the Kaisel HaMaravi. The Kaisel HaMaravi, the western wall, which we daven, if you look up, is not directly below the Dome of the Rock.
Right,
The Dome of the Rock is to the side.
right.
We have never davened, very interesting. We have never davened where the Dome of the Rock was, which
Right.
was a church before that, and was a church to Jupiter before that, right? Always off to
Right.
the side. We have davened like this. And interesting enough, that's where the Beis Hamikdash actually is. There they have not dug. Interesting enough.
Right.
So, goes to show, unbelievable. Tani, we learned. Rabbi Huda ben Lakish Shnei Aronos Hayaharchanim Yisabim. In fact, there were two Aron HaKodeshes that traveled with the Jews in the Midbar. 15 before. We're almost to the bottom. 15 before. Two Aron HaKodeshes. I told you this won't take very long. Echad Haisa HaTorah in the Sunnah B'Seicha. One in which the Torah was placed into it. The Echad Shahayu Shayfer Luchis Naisa B'Seicha. And one in which the broken luchis were placed into. Zeh Shahayu HaTorah in the Sunnah B'Seicha. The one in which the Torah was put into it. The Torah written by Moshe Rabbeinu. Right, that's the one that stayed in the oil Mayeh. Hadu Diksiv, this is what the pasuk means. Ga'arai Peris Hashem u'Moshe lo yimas mikarav ha'machne. The Aron of Hashem's covenant, and Moshe did not move from the midst of the camp. Zeh shayvelucha is nice to the other Aron was where the pieces of the broken luchas were placed. That's the one that would go out and eat with them. And sometimes it was seen with them. In other words, sometimes it was around. Okay? But people take out that line. Take out that last line. Everybody takes it out. The TikTok, the Copenhagen, everybody takes out those words. It just stops. No, there was only one Aron. The Pam Achas Yotzibimei Eli B'Mishpah. And one time it was taken out at the time of Eli HaKohen, and it was captured by the Pelishtim. The famous case of when the Aron was captured by the Pelishtim, and when Eli HaKohen heard about it, he got a heart attack and died. Korea Messiah Rabbanon.
So what happens to the luchas that were not broken, the new one?
So patience. The Gemara is going to go talk about how we put in the luchas. How we put the luchas.
Well, the broken one and the one that Moshe made, the second one,
right?
They were together in the same.
That logically the completed the second luchas that Moshe made. Together with the Sefer Torah, we're in there. But I don't want to get into it too much because that's tomorrow's daf. Tomorrow's daf is a big machlokes. How were they all placed, given the limitations of the size of the Aron HaKodesh? So let's leave that for tomorrow.
So the Sefer Torah that Moshe wrote is also hidden somewhere underneath
That's
there?
Correct. It's in wherever the luchas is, that's where it is. But again, let's deal with that tomorrow because we'll get into it. Right now, let's just talk about what the moving around of the Aron. One time I went out with Eli HaKohen. This is before David HaMelech. This is in the time of Shmuel, and it was captured by the Pelishtim. The famous case when it was captured by the Pelishtim, and Eli HaKohen, when he got the news, died from a heart attack. The pasuk followed this that the Rabbanan said there's only one Aron. Follows what they have a riot to it from this pasuk. the Pelishtim said, woe to us, who will save us from the hand of this mighty God? It was something that had not been seen in their lifetime, i.e. the Aron HaKodesh. Nonetheless, they still captured it. But when they captured it, they got into a lot of trouble. Korea Messiah Rav Yehuda ben Lakish, the pasuk supports of Yehuda ben Lakish, Yomi Shol Achia Hakisha Ha'arein Elikim. Shol said to Achia, bring the Aron of Hashem. For the Aron of Hashem was there with the children on that day. It was at the Kiryas Yerayim. We're on 15b5. So
I'm trying to catch up to you.
Oh, where are you up to, Barry?
At the bottom of before.
Yeah, that's where I'm up to. Korea.
One second, just let me read it. Here,
yes, it's up.
From you, the phone.
Vayayim Shol Achia Gisha
Ola Yisroel v'Yehuda Yoshin B'Sukkos. So the
Daddy, you're ahead of me. You're ahead of me. I'm a little back. Korea Rav Yehuda ben Lakish. Amen Shol Lachia Gisha Orein Elikim. Shol said to Achia, bring the
Oren Hashem. Yeah.
But the Aron was in Kiryas Yerayim. So now we're on 15b5. Eventually, obviously, there were two Aron HaKodeshes. One that Shaul Melech took into Milchama, into battle, and one that was in Kiryas Yerayim. So it says the Gemara, what did the Rabbana do with such a good proof? That means that there are two Aronis, not one Aron. So he said, no, this is what it means. Hagisha Eli Hatzitz. Bring the tzitz to me. That's what he meant. But he didn't mean to bring the Aron. He said, bring the tzitz. Since the tzitz says the words, Kodesh Lashem, holy to Hashem, and since the Kohen had to wear it in order to go ahead, or it had to be near the Kohen, in order to be Merapa from Tomei, he said that was good enough to bring instead of the Aron. Now, Daddy, we're up to the last
but
one.
It wouldn't help them in battle. What does it say?
He felt that it would because it says Kodesh Lashem, holy to Hashem. It's like having the Aron HaKodesh there. He said, you're right, the Aron itself I'm not taking. I'm taking the tzitz, which is what he called it. And if you look at number 41, take a look at number 41 in the art scroll. In order to consult the Urim V'Tumim, the Kohen Gadol had to wear the big days off, the golden garments, the me'il, the tzitz, the ephod, and the choshen. It was called; these items were kept all in a chest, and the chest was called the Aron of Hashem because it contained the sacred items. The Gemara says only the tzitz, because that was the most holy of all those items, because it said Kodesh Lashem. Okay?
No.
So says the Gemara Vaita, Karina Messiah Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish. We have a right to Yehuda ben Lakish. Ha'arain the Yisrael, the Yehuda Yishon Besukais, the Aron, Yisrael, and Yehuda were staying in huts at the battlefield. Now we're on Tez Zayin Amid Aleph. Tomorrow's stop where we're stopping. We're just finishing this few lines. V'haloi Aron b'tzion haya, but the Aron was in Yerushalayim and Tzion. So Alamai there were two Aronites. So what did the Rabbanan do with this proof that there were two Arons, not one Aron? No. We're talking about that the Aron was put under a temporary roof, a sukkah-like roof, which was not yet housed in its permanent abode because there was no Beis HaMikdash yet. Because the great house, the Beis HaMikdash was not yet built. That's all that the pasuk was coming to tell us with regarding to sukkah, meaning it was housed in a sukkah. This is where we are now going to continue. We talked about that the Aron HaKodesh was hidden away. Now we're going to pick it up from here. Amir Hashem.